Friends, I am so excited to welcome you to this new episode of Old Ladies Know Stuff podcast with Rhonda Stoppe and friends. And today I have a new friend that I cannot wait to introduce you to. Her name is Kate Battistelli, and Kate has written an incredible book called The After Party of the Empty Nest. Kate is the author of the book, The After Party of the Empty Nest. She's also the bestseller of the God Dare, Will You Choose to Believe the Impossible? And Growing Great Kids, Partner with God to Cultivate His Purpose in Your Child's Life. She's a contributing writer to the Encourage Bible for Women, the Spirit-Led Women's Bible, and her writing has appeared in Guidepost, the Joyful Life magazine, The Better Mom, MICI, M-I-C-I, I don't know what that is, magazine, and more. She's 1/3 of the popular podcast Mom to Mom. In addition, Kate is an honoree with She Leads Tennessee. Now, this is interesting about Kate's life. As a young actress in New York City, Kate had a life-changing experience going from understudy to starring as Anna in the Broadway national tour of The King and I, opposite Yul Brynner. Now, if you're young, you're going, Yul who? But Google it. Watch the movie of The King and I with Yul Brynner. It's just awesome. And I cannot believe she got to tour with him for more than 1,000 performances. Kate and her husband laid down their careers in Broadway theater in an answer to their first God Dare, moving out of New York City and into a life of homeschooling and home business. She lives in Franklin, Tennessee, near her daughter, Francesca Battistelli. Some of you know her as the Christian artist. I love her music. And 7 grandchildren. Kate serves women by encouraging them to step out of their safe space and into his irresistible future. I love that. Welcome, Kate. I'm going to bring you on stage. So happy to have you here.
Thank you, Rhonda. I love being here. I love the name of your podcast.
Isn't it fun?
Yes, we do. We've lived long enough. We better know stuff.
That's right. Titus 2 calls the older women to teach the younger. And the Old Ladies Know Stuff is a nod to that Titus 2 woman. So happy to have you on here. And I forget, how long have you been married? 40 years? Is that what I read?
It'll be 42 in July, which you just go, how is that possible?
Yeah, we're right there.
It's crazy. But yeah, 42 years.
And do you have more children than Francesca, or is she your only child?
She's the only.
And she gave you 7 grandbabies? Okay, you are lucky.
It's crazy. And I wanted a big family. I wanted 5 kids, and God said 1. But I'm getting it, second generation. That's fine with me.
No, that is so fun. I have 15 grandchildren, and
they
are so much fun. So my nest is empty, but oftentimes they come fluttering home.
I would say,
love it so much. In fact, if you could look over my computer and see the chaos behind, because we just had a big slumber party with 13 of them. That's just my life, and I love it. I don't even care. Well, I would love for us to jump in here, but before we do, I want to make sure everyone knows where they can find you. So your website is, I have Kate Battistelli. Is it Battistelli? Battistelli.
Battistelli. Yeah, you said it right. Yeah.
Okay. KateBattistelli.com is your website. And I've been on there kind of tinkering around this morning, just seeing what I can learn about you. And there's just so many resources, and there's just so much encouragement on your website. So we'll remind everyone about this in the end, but I always want to make sure it's out there at the very beginning. And you have a lot of books and a lot of resources, but the one we're going to talk about today is The After Party of the Empty Nest. So what prompted you to write this book?
Well, when I hit my empty nest, I had never planned for it. We had an only child, and she was going into the music world, and we were doing everything we could just to help her navigate that, because it's a crazy world, and that Christian music, and just helping as doors would open. We were so focused on that I never thought about the time she'd be gone, and that my house would be empty, and that my mistake was I never planned for it.
Right.
And it hit me like a ton of bricks. And I thought, well, now what, God? This is what you get, 18 years or 20 years, and they're gone. And it was, I don't know, it just was this empty place, and I didn't know what to do with it. But
it's a strange kind of grief, isn't it?
Very strange. And no one really tells you how hard it's going to be. Right. As much as you're thinking about it or anticipating it, even if you're anticipating I'm ready for my kids to leave, because there are a lot of moms that they've got their sights set on the next phase, the second act.
Mhm.
But a lot of moms don't, and you just don't know how heavy it can be. And we're all going to go through that to an extent, but it's when we get stuck there. We get stuck, and moms will tell me, my kids have been gone for 3 years. And I'm thinking, well, 3 years, you need to get up and get into the second half of your life. And I
Get a
call
dog. Get a dog.
I call it an after party, because it can be wonderful. I mean, the things that I'm doing now, I never in a million years thought I would be doing. I didn't ever think I'm going to write a book. It
Right.
was not on my radar. I had no desire to do it till God literally dared me to write my first book.
I'm right there with you. Yes. My kids are all gone. And I was like, Lord, I don't want to do this.
No, I didn't want to do it at all. But God said, you're doing it. And I did. And that I'd actually, back then, I started volunteering, which I always suggest, if you're a new empty nester, get out and do something for somebody else.
Yes.
So I was volunteering at a single moms ministry, made some great friends. We were really able to help these moms. And then I started a little food blog, because I love to cook. Franny loves to cook. And I thought, well, she's in Nashville. I've got to get her my recipes. So I had this food blog called The Kitchen Princess, which is so lame, but back when blogging just started. Anyway, I had this, and I thought, well, I want to write about Jesus too. So I wrote some posts, and it just hit me one day about the empty nest. And I thought, this is like an after party. So I wrote a blog post called Motherhood, the After Party, and all about, just how it can be so much more if you put yourself out there, if you pray, dig deep with God, find out what is that other thing. You're called as a mother, but you're called that for a season. You're always mom, but you're not in that actively raising kids season forever. Yeah. That's over. And then what are you going to do next? You've got probably a good 40 years ahead of you, 40 to 50 years. Mm-hmm. Well, with all that time, you're going to sit home and watch Netflix. You can't. We've got to have something else. We've got to find out, Lord, what is that other thing you called me to from the foundation of the world? What is that thing? What am I on this? What's my purpose to build the kingdom? Because I think we forget that has to be the driving force behind whatever we do. How are we impacting the world for the kingdom, large or small? It can be a big ministry, something gigantic the Lord's called you to, or it can be ministering in the Alzheimer's unit in the hospital, taking care of the kids during church, God doesn't look at the size of what we do. He looks at the obedience. Yeah. Are we doing what he's called us to do, whatever it is? Because whatever it is can change the world if we choose to say yes. I like to say, if we choose to be chosen to change the world, we have to choose it.
Yeah. And what's kind of interesting when you're a empty nester, like I can remember being on a Young Moms podcast, and I said, I know you're tired. I know you're exhausted. You're up late at night. The babies are sick, this and that. You're exhausted. You wake up to them opening your eyes for you, all the things. And I said, but this is a season. And I said, you know where I'm at right now? I sleep until I wake up. And she went, oh.
Isn't that great?
What we do when we have this empty nest, we can either spend the rest of our lives lamenting that now they're not calling and they don't reach out to us, and they're not texting us as much as we'd like, or I've texted them 5 times and they still haven't responded, and they're so busy they don't have time for me. And you can get so stuck in that regret. I'm the no regrets woman, and let's help you build a no regret after party. I love that. But I'd love for you real quick and it's just maybe think about it for a second, to speak to, I have a lot of young moms, mm-hmm. or moms that have, my most popular book, Moms Raising Sons to Be Men. And it talks about the launching them out into the world at some point. And some of them have their kids that are young, or they're looking at their junior high. And when they're in junior high, they're like counting the days, like, when do you move out? And then they hit like junior, senior year and you like them again. And you're like, don't go. But maybe speak to those moms that are saying, oh, what she's talking about is so far out there in my spectrum, I can't even connect the dots. What are some things that we can do, even as moms, homeschooling moms? I know you move a lot in the homeschool community. So do I. We make our kids our life. Mm-hmm. And when they walk out the door, like, speak to that, mom.
Yeah, that's what I did. Well, I talk about in the book, start preparing now for then. So it doesn't smack you in the face, so that you've got something already on your radar. Pray, ask the Lord, what is that thing that you're supposed to be moving into? Maybe He's calling you to go back to college. Okay, you can't do that now, but you can start taking a class. There's something you can do to, because whatever you start now, a year from now, you'll be further ahead.
Mhm.
What is that thing maybe that has haunted you from high school that you've always known you're supposed to do, but it wasn't the season? When you're raising kids, a lot of times you can't go off and do something else. But what is that thing that you can start figuring out? There's so many resources today that we didn't have, or that I
Mhm.
didn't have. There was no internet, there was no YouTube, there was none of that. Today, it's just this giant world of resources for a mom. So think about what do you think you'd want to do?
Yeah.
Where do you think God's calling you? And
Yeah.
start digging into that. I mean, prayer is the answer to almost anything. And He might not show you right away. He didn't show me. It was a couple of years after that I started writing books and doing all this stuff. So, but as best you can, or look back at maybe a hobby or something you love to do that maybe you thought, man, I want to turn that into a business.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, you need to start researching how to start a small business. You know what I'm saying? We have to begin somewhere, and wherever you can fit it in your day. I like to say, do it in the margins. That hour where you have that time where the kids are all gone for the day or whatever, where you can sit at your computer or sit down, or maybe you want to be a writer, start writing, take an hour a day. An hour a day at the end of the year, that's 365 hours. You and I know it takes a long time to write a book, but
Yeah.
you'd be real far ahead if you started now, or look up about the publishing or self-publishing. Any of those things you can do now. So
Yeah.
that's my best advice, to don't wait till 6 months before they're gone and start thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be miserable. It's going to be hard for a while, but that
Mhm.
does not last forever if we decide we're not going to sit there.
Yes. And I loved that you mentioned earlier that God saved us unto good works. He ordained in advance that we should walk in them. Ephesians 2:10. And what I love about knowing that is, even the Proverbs 31 woman, like that woman, her resume is like, what the
Oh
what?
yeah,
But
she's
she did
good.
that over a lifetime. She didn't do that all at the
No.
same time. And that's where we find ourselves, is as we just wake up every day, seek His face, walk in obedience to Him. I just was looking up a scripture while you were talking that came to mind, Isaiah 30:21. And your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. When you turn to the right or when you turn to the left. That's the God we serve. He doesn't give us charts and graphs of what's going to happen next on our list. He wants us to have a faith walk, and He wants us to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, author and finisher of our faith, not on what's the next thing. And how, I mean, if you're a control freak, if you're a manipulator of circumstances, the Bible says to be still and know that He is God. That word be still means the letting down of hands. Just be still in His presence. And then make friends outside of your world, in your little bubble. Make couple friends if you're married, with you and your spouse. I have friends that we've nursed our babies together, and now we've nursed our dying parents together, and now we're burying our parents, and now my friends are even burying their spouses. And we have had friendships, and like you said, internet, we can stay in contact. Even when we lived in Austin, Texas for 6 years and we were planting a church there, we were still in contact with each other. And as your nest is empty, you look more forward to those times with friends that are walking through the same experience you are. So I love that. I just wanted to make sure we touched on that. So when you understand this transition, can you explain any emotional challenges that moms face, and why can this period be so difficult for them? And what are some common signs that moms might be struggling with empty nest syndrome?
Yeah. I think fear is one of the biggest ones, because you're suddenly feeling, do I have a purpose?
Yeah.
What is there for me? Am I still relevant? All those things that we think we were so fully mom, that was our full identity. Well, now that's gone for the most part. Now, who am I? That's one of the biggest things. And fear about the next thing. Is God going to show me? Am I going to know it when He tells me? All those things, those are big. That's probably the biggest, that one, and loneliness. Those are hard to overcome. But like you said, get with your people. find the ones that you can spend time with. And the good thing about the empty nest, you've got a lot more time. You're not the chauffeur, you're not the cook, you're not doing all those things anymore. You're not the organizer and the planner. You get to have free time. If you're a working mom, it's a little different, but still you have more free time at night and on the weekends because you're not taking kids around, you're not dealing with all of that. But to have that time to just enjoy life, enjoy your husband, go back and do that hobby or that sport or that craft,
Yeah.
get back and do gardening, whatever it is. You have that freedom now to do that. And you have more money to go out to eat. I was telling somebody this week, recently took 6 of our 7 grandchildren to Chick-fil-A. It cost $100. I thought, oh my word. And if you've had a big family and all of a sudden they're gone, it's like, oh, we can go out to eat ourselves and we could probably go to a nicer restaurant. So things like that those are the positives of the empty nest. There's so many good things about it. Once you get past the loneliness, once you get past missing that empty seat at the dinner table, because that will bother you for a while, then it's going to be your new normal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that you touched on that is allowing yourself the time to grieve. It is so sad. And I did not write my first book until I remember driving down. We live in a mountain in the middle of nowhere. I was driving to town on the last day of the last year of my last child's school. She was a senior in high school. She was graduating and that was it. And she was going to go away to college. All my kids were away at school or in the military. And I remember just crying and saying, Lord, what now? What next? And when he impressed on my heart to write a book, I'm like, I am not a writer. I don't want to do that. I think of something else because I don't think I heard you right. Drag me through an open door. I'm not pushing the doors open. And even when I was going through this what next experience and my heart was grieving, I had to allow myself to be sad and not to pretend like it didn't hurt. And I had a golden retriever dog. They are so sensitive. What's going on with you? And my golden retriever never left my side. He sat at my feet. He hung out with me. He knew that mama was sad. And I got to tell you, that was just a joy to find this enjoyment in having a dog that sensed my sorrow. And there's nothing wrong with us when we go through that sorrow. The emptiness syndrome that you were talking about is when we get stuck there, when we feel resentment because our kids aren't reaching out to us, or we feel wounded that, I gave you 18, 20 years of my life and you won't even call me. They're not going to call you. They're busy.
It's like us with our moms. I didn't call my mom all the time.
Right.
I was busy doing my thing and we weren't especially close. So it was maybe a little different, but even if you're close, you can't expect them to make you the focal point of their life anymore, because you're not. If they're in college, they're doing that thing. If they're married, having their own kids, they're busy.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to give you the time you need, but not always the time you want.
Yeah.
So we have to let go. We have to let go of that, what's the word? Well, I guess of that need to have them with us all the time, or to have that constant communication. And there are some kids that can't let go of us. Yeah. And it's incumbent on us to help them cut that cord. They're the ones texting us 5 times a day. And it's like, you need to be independent. You've got to go out and live your life. So it can go both ways, but typically it's us texting them.
Yes. Right. Yeah, for sure. And I love your insight, because I feel like you said, this comes upon us sooner than we can even expect. And for some of my audience, I spoke at a grandparenting summit, 8,000 people. So I know I have a lot of new viewers from you guys. So this episode's for you. But honestly, when like your nest is empty, and like you pointed out, you may not be wealthy. Maybe you're on a fixed income now, and so your money isn't as what it was. But be generous with what you do have. Be generous with your time. Whenever my kids ask me to babysit those grandkids, I say yes, unless I am traveling and cannot be there. Be generous. And I remember going shopping with my mom when I was in the thick of it. And my husband was a pastor of a small church. We had no money. And I went to Arizona to stay with her to help her move into her new house. And she had plenty of money. And we went shopping, and she had her cart just stacked full of stuff. Wow. And I think I bought one top, one shirt, and my mom was a teenager when she had me. She was 17 years old. It just never even crossed her mind. And I literally was like, wouldn't it be nice if my mom bought the shirt for me? Is what I was thinking. And how much more we can lavish on ourselves because we're not buying new school clothes or new tennis
Right,
shoes or
right.
that. But what if you didn't? What if you lavished it on your adult children that are making sacrifices for their kids? Now
Mhm.
you buy them a new cute top, or you buy them a coffee or a coffee gift card or whatever. Generosity in this season, I would say that's the highlight of my empty nest experience, is that I get to have generosity with my time and with my resources. I love that.
Oh, it's wonderful.
So
Yeah.
fun. So open communication, we talked about that during the transition. Can you think of some effective ways to even initiate those conversations with our children that, or the support that we need during this transition? Like, how do you feel like you're the only person, the lame person going through this?
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they're going to know that you're having a hard time, and hopefully they will have empathy, and they'll help you get through it. But you also want them to see that you're handling it well, that you're not in misery and just waiting for them to call. They've got to see that you're strong, that you can do this, that God is with you, that you're living out what you taught them, that they're strong, they can change the world. All those things you poured into them, let them see that coming out of you, if that makes sense. We've got to do our best. And that's why getting in and jumping in and starting to do something, whatever that thing is that God's calling you to do. And even if you don't sense yet, this is my purpose, get out and volunteer, find a younger woman to mentor, get with those other empty nest moms, and you can commiserate and talk about stuff, but you're going to get ideas and information and things from them that maybe you hadn't realized. But I think just keep that communication open with your kids. There's not a whole lot they can do for you other than talk to you and help you feel better about the day, but we can't depend on them for that.
Yeah. Well, and if we burden them with that, they don't want to call.
No, they don't.
It's like, if the first thing you say, well, it's been 3 weeks since I've heard from you, that doesn't make them want to call you again. No. It's like,
doesn't make them want to come home at Christmas.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, let's talk about that, because if your kids are reluctant to come home for the holidays, bring their spouse home, bring their kids home, make sure, this is on you, that they're not having to tell their family, okay, we're going to go see Nana, or we're going to go, telling their spouse, we're going to go see my mom. These are the things that trigger her. Don't talk about politics. Don't, leave the hand towel on the floor. Don't wear dirty shoes in the house. Don't break anything, because she'll lose her ever loving mind. If they're having to walk on eggshells around you, they're not going to want to come. They may give you the required visit because a good child does that for their parent. But what if you're not that person? What if you make your home so welcoming? I mean, I always say people over possessions. My stuff is just stuff. And if it's so valuable that I don't want my grandkids, 15 of them, to break, and my grandkids are pretty young, and they take over my house and I just let them have it and they have a blast. But if I have stuff out that I don't want them to break, it doesn't mean I don't have nice things out here and there, but I have to know if it gets broken, it's not going to destroy me. And I don't want to destroy a child over a broken trinket. So people over possessions has always been my mantra.
Absolutely. And hospitality, like you said, opening your home, being welcoming them. I always have favorite things the kids want. Mimi, you're going to make this, right? You're going to have this. And they love that. They know that there are certain traditions, certain things they count on. I'm sure when they come to your house, they know there are going to be certain things that are going to happen, that they'll get to eat, that you're going to play with them. And that's a joy. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. And for our kids to see us loving their kids, that's super important. And just the joy, if you are privileged to be a grandparent, not all empty nest moms are going to have that. But for those of you that are, that's a blessing you really didn't expect. You didn't know exactly what that would be. My husband always says, I didn't know my heart could grow that much bigger, because is it the Norwegians that say grandchildren are life's dessert? And
I love that.
Isn't that great? Because that's what it is. It's like, because you don't have to deal with all the messy stuff, mostly, unless you're babysitting, but you get to have fun. And Christmas, I mean, we go crazy at Christmas. They have the best time. And that's a joy for us to be able to do that.
It is. And for just a half a second, it's not in what we were going to talk about, but talk to the empty nester who is is single, either her, how many empty nesters, their marriage falls apart when the kids move out. And there she is at home. Her husband has now, left for a 20-year-old, or he's just said, hey, I don't even know you anymore. I'm out of here. That happens. And if you're young and you're listening, your priority relationship with Christ and then with your spouse is you've got to be your husband's friend. Old ladies know stuff. Teach the older women, teach the younger to love your husbands, to be his friend. You want him to want to hang out with you in the empty nest? Be his friend now. Absolutely. But speak to the woman who's widowed or who has found herself completely alone.
That is super hard. I have a chapter on single moms in the book, because when their kids are gone, they're doubly alone. There's nobody to turn to, nobody to be with, and it's hard. And they, more than anything, have got to find community. You've got to get out there and meet people, do things, volunteer, join something, join a Bible study, something at your church, but press into other people, because it's hard to be alone. I mean, I've not had to go through that with being married almost 42 years, but I know a lot of women that are single, and it's tough. It's tough because if your husband, and especially when the nest empties, it can be tough on marriage because you've been so focused on the kids that all of a sudden, who is this guy? Do I like him anymore? Do I want to spend time with him? So what you said, now press into that relationship. Take a date night every week. I have a whole list of ideas for date nights. And even if you don't have much money, we'll swap with another couple. You watch their kids one week, they watch your kids. There's a zillion ways you can spend that time, but that is a priority because they were there before the kids. They're going to be there after the kids. But there's a whole phenomenon called gray divorce, where that's exactly what happens. And I think it's mostly motivated because they didn't make that relationship a priority. They didn't love their husbands the way the Titus 2 woman is supposed to teach the younger to love their husbands.
Yeah. And that, if you're young and you're hanging with us talking about this empty nest thing, let this be the nugget that you walk away with. You're raising your son for somebody else. He's going to be somebody else's husband. You're not raising him to be yours for the rest of his life, sending him out well. Your daughters, sending them out well. But remember, the priority relationship, if you're married, is to pour into that relationship now. I speak at homeschool conventions. I think you probably do too. You meet homeschool moms. I've literally had them say to me, my husband understands it's not about us right now. It's about the kids. When the kids are grown, when I'm no longer homeschooling, then it will be our time. That is absolutely wrong, right? It's gonna bite you. It's not how the priority relationship that God has for us, and that will not equip you for your empty nest. So creating new traditions, you just kind of talked about. So the long-term perspective. Lastly, Kate, what long-term benefits can come from navigating the empty nest phase together, and how can daughters and moms and mothers-in-law, moms and sons, emerge from this experience with a stronger relationship?
I think if you pay attention to what's important to them and they pay attention to what's important to you, if you're involved to the degree they want you to be, because we can get pushy, we can say, well, I want to come and do this. And they don't want you to be, and they don't want to tell you. So they allow you to. And like you said, they don't want to come home for Christmas. It's like, oh gosh, we got to go deal with this. But I think if you give them space and be excited about what they're doing, but not being too controlling of it, we have to let that go, because they're not under our roof anymore. We don't have that right to control them unless they're asking for help or advice. I don't say anything because it's not my place. But by the same token, we want them to be recognizing and acknowledging what we're doing, that new thing that we're doing, and to support us in that. I think it's really kind of a mutual support where they are in life and where we are. If we can support each other, love each other, pray for each other, that's going to make the difference.
Yeah. And honestly, that Moses on the mountaintop interceding for them. I remember when my son had gone away to college and he called me like 3 times in one day about FAFSA, loans, all that stuff. And every time he called, I said, what are you doing? I said, I'm actually just sitting in front of the fire, reading my Bible and praying today, just trying to get my heart back where it needs to be in a good spot. And then he called later, what are you doing? I'm still sitting in front of the fire, reading my Bible, praying. 3rd time, Mom, what are you doing? I go, my attitude still hasn't changed. So here I sit. And he said, Mama, you have no idea what it means to me to know that you are sitting in your chair in front of that wood stove,
Mhm.
reading your Bible and praying for us. It gives us such security.
Uh,
We have our role changes. It is a role of cheering them on and advising when they ask and being that prayer warrior. I absolutely love that perspective. Do you have any final things you'd like to share?
I would say to the woman maybe who's approaching the empty nest or maybe in it and miserable, this is your chance to really press into the Lord, find out what is that thing you're on this planet to do, because we need whatever that is. You're part of the body. We need your gift, your skill, your work, whatever God's calling you to do, we need it. We're in a crazy time in history. Think about when God saved us to put us on this planet at the end times, I believe. And
Yes.
here we are. I think it's a huge honor that he saved us to the end. You know, as crazy as this world is and as difficult it can be to navigate, what an honor. And we're here to build the kingdom. We're here to do something. And if that makes you feel guilty, that's good, because I want you to know that you have to get out and get up and do that thing. Find out, pray, get counselors, get mature Christians to pray with you and for you. And you're going to know, and then step out and do it. Don't be afraid.
I love that. That's such great advice. Okay, well, there's so much more we could talk about, but please visit Kate Battistelli's website, katebattistelli.com. You will find all of her resources there, all of her books. You can schedule her to speak, have her on your podcast, the Mom to Mom podcast. You can find a link to episodes of that there, and her book, The After Party of the Empty Nest. If you're not there yet, your mom might be. And maybe it's a book you could buy for your mom. Mother's Day is coming up.
Absolutely.
It might be a really encouraging gift to give to your mom with some flowers or chocolate and say, hey, I listened to this podcast called Old Ladies Know Stuff. And there were a couple old ladies on there that I think you would learn so much from this book written by Kate Battistelli called The After Party of the Empty Nest. Thanks so much for being my guest. I have so enjoyed visiting with you.
Thank you, Rhonda. This was great.
Thanks, Kate.